I look like a corpse and I also feel like a corpse. Our protagonist gets beat up, bullied verbally, bullied spiritually. Am I losing my mind? Is this the effect of all the awful books that I read this month? Hi, welcome back. You see me looking like a dead rat. It's because I feel like it. It's full allergy season. I'm a very allergic person. It's not been fun this week, like at all. I did realize though that I did not talk about the things that I read in February. I want to be more consistent this year with all the books that I read each month. I think those are the most fun videos for me and for you. I feel like you like them a lot. I also read such weird books this month. Possibly a lot of 1 stars, and I deserve that because I purposely chose these books. I wanted something fun, I got something terrible. But let's start with the first 2 mangas that I've read this month. They were actually really good. That's a fucking military airplane. Vi odio militari maledetti. So you started with Konoko ni Mirai wa Nai by Mori Hashibingo. I read both volumes. It talks about a transgender girl that cannot express herself in modern day Japan. It's really sad. It's really realistic, so the ending is very bittersweet. I really liked the first volume. The second volume, I felt like the editors of this manga gave the author an ultimatum. Like, we're just going to give you 2 volumes to wrap up the story, and it wrapped up really quickly, really bittersweetly. And I really like the main character motivation, even though her ending was kind of tragic. Nothing too sad, nothing violent, but I also really like that all the secondary characters were really vivid in my mind. They had such vivid and impactful stories themselves, even though they were completely like their separate person from the main character. I gave the first volume 5 stars and the second 4 stars. Yes, I think that is. Then I don't know what came up to me. I have an audiobook subscription, and I find out that I really like going to sleep with an audiobook on, but it has to be something stupid, like a silly romance, a monster romance, if you will. So I chose this book not knowing anything about it. It's called 4 Psychos by Christy Canning. Okay, so this one is very interesting because story, terrible. The main love interest, there are like 4 love interests that are kind of like death spirits. They do like Grim Reaper stuff, and then they come back to this house where they live, and the house is haunted by the ghost of the protagonist, which made it really interesting. But the 4 guys are interchangeable and stupid and awful. Our main protagonist, though, it's one of the best protagonists I've ever seen written in anything. She was so hilarious. She was so good. She was horny, she was funny, she was like such a sunny girl, and I felt like the author really had her fun writing this character, and as a reader I felt all of the love for this main character. She was awesome. The story was awful. The writing was kind of bad, but it was so fun at the end that it made no sense what was happening, but the protagonist was so entertaining that I gave it 3 stars. There's a cat! There's a cat! Cat! Hello, kitty! Then I read The Stolen Heir. I have a vlog in which I read The Stolen Heir. I give you my full thoughts. It's an interesting book. It's not The Cruel Prince, of course. Our protagonist is now Oak, who was a little kid in the Cruel Prince series. He's now very grown up. And this is kind of like a quest story. Our protagonist is not Oak per se, the story is about him. Our protagonist is Ren, who is a fey creature. We see her as Suren, Queen Suren, in the main series. Their story was very interesting. I really like their character. I don't know why, and I've said it so many times, Holly Black is allergic to descriptions. She gives this nebulous description of things and places to wrap up the action really quick, and I don't know why she does that. This book could have been like a trilogy in itself. It's such a long quest story, and we go there, and then we did this, and then we did that, which was not to say that it was rushed. It's just her writing style. I really liked the relationship between the two protagonists, Oak and Ren, even though that ending, while shocking, while I love that, it was kind of character assassination for me. For Ren, she changes so abruptly, and I have no idea why. I am waiting for the second book to explain what was happening. And then I read the worst thing ever. I read probably the worst thing that was ever written. It is a 0 star, -1 star if I could. I did not technically finish this book, but I read enough that my idea, I don't even know how to say it. In my vlog I've got like the spoiler stuff. Basically, it's another Grim Reaper book. Shocker, spoiler. Our main protagonist receives a letter, kind of like, Harry Potter, in which he is accepted as the only human for the Grim Reaper Academy, in which all people, creatures, etc. can become Grim Reapers. And she goes. The writing is atrocious. Like the worst writing I've ever read in my entire life, and I've read some pretty awful stuff. The writer does not know how to properly write scenes and paragraph breaks and transitions. None of that. It's supposed to be like a bully kind of dark romance, well, not so dark, more so bully romance, in which the bullies do things that are morally reprehensible to the max. They cannot come back from that, but it's okay because they are supernatural creatures and they have a looser moral compass than humans, so it's all okay. Our protagonist gets beat up, bullied verbally, bullied spiritually. She gets herself in all sorts of situations that involves people taking advantage of her with their powers, like hypnotic powers, etc. But the thing that cemented this book as the worst of all time in my mind is that one of the people that gets introduced in the beginning that is going to become part of her harem, because it's a reverse harem, is an archangel, because angels have genders, people. I don't know why, but of all the people, the archangel is the one that gets introduced being homophobic. Our protagonist befriends a gay wizard, and this archangel comes all high and mighty, and he's homophobic. The archangel, homophobic. Wonderful, wonderful representation. And then another one of the guys that gets into the harem later on is a demon. He is very crass, very lewd. It's okay. His humor is foul, but that's okay. He has sex with his sister. And when the protagonist confronts him on it, and she's like, "You are doing a terrible thing. That's incest. Please, what are you doing?" He's like, "Well, your morals are human. I'm not a human, so this does not apply to me. I will keep having sex with my sister, and possibly my sisters." He becomes a sympathetic character later on without addressing any of this. So does the archangel. So does everybody in that fucking harem. I hated this book. It's a series. I don't know who let this author go on. People told me that it gets better, just like, Zodiac Academy gets better on book 5. But I will not continue reading a series that is this level of terrible. Sorry, that was such a long-winded rant, but we'll go on with something beautiful. I read the first 2 volumes of Insomniacs After School by Makoto Ojiro. Lovely manga about 2 kids in high school that suffer from insomnia, and they refound the astrology club because there's nothing they can do at night if not look at the stars and take pictures, and the only way that they can sleep is beside each other. It's really sweet, it's really wonderful. There's a fat cat, like a tuxedo fat cat. Wonderful, 5 stars to all the volumes. And then I read a manga that is a tie-in with a series of books that I have not read. But mangas can be standalones. They're like 3 volumes. Yeah, 3 volumes. It's called Vampire Kisses, Blood Relatives. I feel like this series was very, very popular in the 2010s, and I read it just today. It was fun. It was very fun. The romance was very healthy for being, you know, a human and a vampire. They're teenagers, and the vampire is a really goofy guy, and so is the main character. She's like this gothic chick. The style was wonderful. The clothes are all so creative. The story was kind of meh, but I had my fun. 4 stars. Oh, then I read the first 4 volumes of Kamisama Kiss. Do I have them here? No, I am supposed not. I mean, the best love story of all time. I say this in my vlog, but a classic for a reason. It was so good, incredible, impeccable, the most beautiful, fun, comedic romance of all time. Possibly 5 stars to all the volumes. One of the queerest and most fun books that you can find in the sci-fi scene right now, and it's August Kitko and the Makers from Space. The title is a mouthful, but I really love this book. It's the perfect mix of, I've said it so many times, Evangelion and Premiere in terms of like giant robots fighting in space and queer romance with neon colors and fun musical aspect. Because our 2 protagonists, one is Gus, the other one is Ardent, one is a guy, the other one is a non-binary person, which was so fun. They're both musicians. One is a jazz musician, the other one is a pop rock musician, and through the power of music they control these giant robots that come from space, and they have to save humanity. And it's so fun, so queer, so welcoming. It's not as accessible as a sci-fi book because I feel like the writing was very dense with brand names, like the name of corporation and things that you construct while reading a sci-fi story. I had my problems with the writing because it was so dense, and I am not bilingual. English is my second language, like my secondary language, but it was so worth it. I give it 4.5 stars. I cannot wait for the series to progress. I hope next year for a book 2, maybe even a book 3. And then a book that in my Goodreads it says that I've read it in March, but I actually read it in April. Am I losing my mind? Is this the effect of all the awful books that I read this month? I actually read it in February. I read another like silly romance. It's called Tempt Me by Kay Tucker. It's the typical naive Christian girl discovers there's, oh my god, my sexuality is actually kind of more vast than I thought about. She gets, I think, cheated on by her fiance that is also Christian, like heavy American Christian values, and she transfers to a remote place in which there's this hotel chain, very luxurious, and she begins her relationship with her boss. I would say it was very boring. Aside from the ending, it was kind of shocking. I hope she dumps him because he's kind of terrible. Not like a terrible person, but he's so boring. Get you a man that can be, you know, sexy in prose and then the most boring person in every other aspect of his life. But I would say the smut scenes, like the sexy stuff, was actually kind of decent. It was not cringy. It was decently, you know, drawn out, the scenes. If you want something purely for the smut, I think this series is for you. I'm not continuing on this series though. I've had it enough, and that is why I'm doing it again. I'm still reading the silly romances to go to bed, because they are like a sleeping pill. They put me to sleep in such a wonderful way, and I don't have nightmares. I suggest you do that. Give your silly, goofy authors a chance to go to sleep. So yes, these were all the books that I read in February. Please tell me what you read in February and what was the best book that you read this month. I would love to hear you in the comments. I try to always respond when I sometimes rarely get them. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. It's going to be a very fun romance fantasy filled vlog. So be on the lookout for that. And oh yeah, my socials are down below if you want to connect with me. Most active on TikTok. It's fun time there. I talk both in Italian and in English, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Mwah.